All right, welcome back. Today we are going to delve into one of the most reliably heated situations that any parent finds them in. We're talking about the bedroom. And we are not talking about the mess. We're talking about access because there's a growing trend right now that your teenager deserves and deserves the right to privacy from you, which means that you have to knock. You have to ask permission. Their phone is off limits, their DMs are off limits, their social media, everything's off limits. And there's a lot of parents that are just going along with this. So, is it their space or is it your house? That's today. And this is now Parenting Teens Today. I'm your host, Tiffany Dogie, President and CEO of Children's Harbor. And
I'm Vanessa Seltzer, the Chief Development Officer at Children's Harbor. And if you are enjoying our content, please stop right now, subscribe to us, because it really does help.
We have 3 guests today, and they have been to this battleground and back today. So, ladies, we are talking about teenagers and their privacy. Mm-hmm. Let's start with tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then I want to know what your gut reaction is to this parenting philosophy, because I know I have opinions and we haven't even started asking questions.
My name is Kate Goldman. I work in the government and community relations space, and I am the mom to a beautiful and also spicy 18-year-old who's about to be 19 years old. And we have been down this road, and it's been a really interesting journey. And I've had to check myself several times and really put some thought into why I was reacting or acting the way that I was in relation to what my daughter terms as her safe space.
Okay.
My name is Erica Royal, and I am the founder of a company called Royal Influence. This is not a coincidence. And prior to that, I was an attorney for 22 years, an employment lawyer. Now I am more of a coach consultant. I work with lawyers, helping them become, successful partners, and also helping companies work on their workplace cultures. I have 3 children. They are about to be 22, 20, and 17.
Almost.
2 girls and a boy.
Almost off the payroll.
Almost, but it doesn't feel that way.
Well, thank you for being here.
I'm Dr. Brandy Peterman. I'm the founder of Changing Tides Therapy, a mental health practice that serves children, adolescents, young adults, and families. I'm glad to be back and appreciate the invite. Where I stand on this is we need to have balance. So I'm really interested to dive into the discussion and hear your all's perspective, your opinions as well, Tiffany, and you as well, Vanessa. But from my perspective and just my work with the families, the community, it really is about balance, because while teens do deserve privacy, it's a parent's responsibility to ensure safety. So we got to meet in the middle. Is where I'm coming from.
All right, Miss Vanessa. First question. Looking back, is there anything that you wish you had done differently or handled differently when it came to your kids' space or their journey?
We're looking at me, huh?
Well, either one. Yes.
No, so it's interesting because I think when we become parents, we bring a lot of our past with us and the way that we were raised and maybe the rules of the house that we came from. And I noticed as when Samantha was little, it was not an issue. Of course I was going in there. I was, that's where we played. That's where I put her laundry away. That's where I went to check on her, see what she was doing, make sure she was safe. As she progressed and became a teenager, that's when we noticed a little bit of conflict. I still felt there was no expectation of privacy when I was growing up.
No.
So it was just understood. Your parents could come in the room at any given time. And even at one time in high school, I had the door taken off the hinges.
Oh.
I mean, that was the one time, I guess, I acted
slam
out.
it? Did you slam it?
I don't remember what I did, to be honest with you, if I slammed it or what, but it was, it was clear that there was no expectation of privacy. And I started to kind of take that into my parenting style, thinking I was being a good parent, and my teen started pushing back. And she's like, hey, wait a minute, this is my space. This is where I go when I need to, be alone or calm down or focus on something, and you're just busting in here all the time. And I was like, oh, okay, yikes. Let me think about that for a little bit. And that's when, I started, knocking, hey, because I still felt like I needed to check in on her, I wanted to make sure she was okay. I wanted to make sure she was safe. So we sort of did this little dance back and forth.
Now, how old was she when she started?
She probably was about 13 when she started this, closing the door. Hey, what are you doing in there? Closing the door, and me feeling like, oh, wait a minute, I feel like an outsider in my own home, and we had the conversations. I keep this roof over, this is my house. You're lucky to live here. I pay the mortgage, and not considering the fact that this individual, which she is an individual, albeit needs guardrails, she needed the space to feel safe and to grow without me hovering over her or eyeballing her the entire time.
Okay, I'm going to save my next question. I'm going to ask 3 kids, 3 of them.
Three
and I
children,
assume
yes.
I assume you had differences because of their age ranges. Like your 17-year-old is way different than your 22.
Yeah, I mean, the kids were all, they're 2 years apart, right? So what was great about that was that they were kind of their own party all the time, right? Like we would go places, and my children in my house, outside of my house, they entertain themselves. So when I was listening to you talk, in addition to the fact that, I love to observe your Midwestern sensibilities, I think I just also had a very different experience because I didn't feel compelled to entertain my children ever. In fact, I told them multiple times that it was really their job to entertain me. And so, which, I'm not joking. And so, yeah, it's different mainly, I think, because your oldest is always going to be your oldest. When you ask the question, are there things you wish you'd done differently? I'm sure there are. None spring to mind right this moment, but when you were talking, I was thinking about, I grew up, I didn't have my own room, right? I shared a room with my sister until I went to college. And so just the idea of having your own space, I lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with my mother and my sister and my brother.
Wow.
So this idea of your own space or privacy, that was non-existent for me. When I had children, when my husband and I had children, we had a very different perspective. It was very important to us that we bought a house where everybody could have their own space. And at first the kids didn't want it. So they would all sleep in the same room for a really long time.
Wow.
They would all go into my oldest daughter's room and they would all sleep in there. And then I think that stopped when she was, maybe 12? Maybe. And then the 2 younger ones went into a room for a couple of years. And then finally my son went into his own room, which is down the hall from everybody else. The girls have a Jack and Jill. So they would argue they don't have their own bathroom, but I would tell them to shut up. They're like, we have to share space. I'm like, you have no idea, my darling. So I think that I took kind of a different approach. Kate knows, I say this to people all the time and to my children. My parenting is for me. Right? It's not for you. So like at some point you're going to go and tell some therapist or some other adult what it was like to grow up with me and how you felt about it. And that's going to be your story to tell and all of that. And I'm going to have this version of the kind of parent that I was, and I'm going to be the kind of parent I want to be, even if you don't like it. So where it's come up is when my children, for example, my daughter was a dancer, and then when she was 14, she's like, I don't want to dance anymore. And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And she goes, think about what? I go, whether or not we let you quit dance. And she's like, well, how do you get to decide? And I said, how do you get to decide? And I said, if you can't come to me with something you're going to replace it with that meets these criteria, that's people that I know, that it's a safe space, or whatever, then you can't quit. And she actually told me recently, thank you for not letting me quit, because I didn't have anything to replace it with.
We employed that as well.
Yeah.
Jordan, at one point, because he was in football, and at one point didn't want to do tackle football. And we were like, that is okay, but you will finish the season because your team is depending upon you, and then you will find something else. And before you can quit, you have to find something else. It's the same concept. We don't quit. We need to find another. You need to find another engagement activity.
Yeah. For me, it's as an adult. My kids are 8 and 3. I still co-sleep. So, although my 8-year-old is showing
That is a different
signs,
episode.
Yes, my 8-year-old is showing signs of like wanting to close a door in their playroom and have some privacy. But I do remember, for me growing up, privacy was earned. Especially as the girl. My brother could burn down the house. I had to be watched. But my parents were also, you're independent. Like, I'm not here to entertain you. My mom was like, I have stuff to do. My dad was always working, so I think by the time I became a teen, we were so used to going into our own corners that I don't think they thought, oh, is she spending too much time alone in her room? So I guess my question is, what is that balance between giving your teen space, so that way they can develop
Autonomy
and things like that, but then when are you literally just locking yourself out permanently from their lives?
I think that's you, man. Go for it.
Well, so one thing I want to touch on real quick that I feel like all of you were discussing is the consideration that you've given your kids. And that, from a therapist standpoint, is very appreciated. And talking to the kids that I work with. To answer your question, Vanessa, it is balance, right? So it is so important to make sure your kids are growing and developing and have that opportunity for autonomy, but it needs to be guided, right? So it cannot be a free-for-all where you're just, here you go, have at it. They're not ready for that. Your 13-year-old and your 12-year-old's not ready, or your 8-year-old's not ready to just be
On their own.
given, right, the keys to the kingdom, and you say, figure it out.
Call me if you need me.
Right. Call me if you need me. They need guidance, and it's important to have the balance. So I also think, and I'm sure we'll get into it later in the discussion, is you want to look out for different warning signs if there are issues that they are closing off too much or they are reclusing, because that can mean something different. But having engagement activities, very critical and extremely important, right? You want them to be out of the house, making friends, socializing, having opportunities for enrichment. And you want to make sure that they have their own space where they can grow and develop and feel safe and they can be themselves. When I think about your homes, you have an interior decorator style, right? That you enjoy. What is that representative of? Who you are.
Oh, yes.
Right? Your personality. Yes. Your kids' rooms reflect that too. Now, if you're in same thing with their style and their clothing, right? It's a safe haven for them to just be who they want to be. If instead, though, there's plates of food, there's garbage everywhere, they're constantly in there, their hygiene starts to deteriorate, that's a red flag. That's different. That's where that fine line becomes, let's talk about this because something's not right. You don't have an engagement or enrichment activity. You're just hiding in your room all day and you're closed off, on your games, on your phone, and that's not healthy. So that's what I mean by there's balance, right? Like you are responsible as an adult for their safety, but you also need to make sure that they get to grow and be autonomous and learn what that looks like to be themselves. They're not meant to be carbon copies of you.
I never push back on, as a parent, because we all know that Tiffany subscribes to the children should be seen and not heard philosophy, because that's how I was raised. So that's been my struggle as a parent. The children should be seen and not heard parenting approach has been my personal challenge. But I never really had an issue with how they decorate their room. And as I speak about Jordan and all of the teenagers that we are responsible for, it's not about how they decorate their room or how they express their identity. It's never been an issue. It's about the fact that we are inundated with information on the daily. I cannot wrap my brain around the two different sides. Their frontal lobe isn't developed. They have no impulse control. They struggle with risk assessment until they're far into their 20s. But yet, give them their privacy. Give them their space. They should have unmonitored social media accounts. You should have to ask permission if you want access to their social media accounts. That's not...
So that's a hard no.
That's a hard no.
So
I'm
not subscribing to that by any means. Right. It is, development is a practice and it requires patience. So two things could be true at once, right? Your kid can have an underdeveloped frontal lobe and they're still growing, and they still deserve privacy and to see what, autonomy looks like, but that's why you don't give it to them all at once. I think of it like, if you're trying to teach your kids financial skills and responsibility, you're not going to give them your credit card. I would hope you wouldn't just give them your credit card, drop them off at the mall, and be like, have at it. Not responsible. Right. You would teach them budgeting, right? Same thing with driving. You're not going to give Jordan, you wouldn't have given Jordan keys and been like, here, go for a joyride. No. You would have taught Jordan how to get behind a wheel, what the stop sign means, what, the different lights means, how to, buckle up, do certain turns. You're going to teach and walk them through those steps. So it requires practice and patience, but you're certainly, the rule of thumb, you don't just thrust them into it. You have to ease them into it. So both two things can be true at once. They're still developing, and they need the guidance in a structured environment where they can grow and learn those things. And that requires and allows them to have some personal space and privacy. Doesn't mean you got to close them off.
Right. I know with social media, so obviously Samantha, grew up in a time, when we grew up, we didn't have the internet. This was never an issue.
Thank goodness.
Right. Thank goodness is right. And now we have these children, and in an age where so many things are going awry, and there's sex trafficking, and there's predators, and all of this, I kind of became obsessed with that. But at the same time, she wanted social media because her friends did too. So we came up with this compromise. Look, if you're going to have these devices that I pay for, that I bought, that I provide the internet to, you're going to provide me the access to all of your social media. And even to this day, now she's going to be 19 in a month. I know she has her private stories that only a small group of friends can see and whatnot, but we still follow each other on Life 360 and that's the deal. You want me to pay for your phone? I get access. I get access because I want to make sure that you're safe.
But you see what you did there? You set the expectation before giving it to her.
Correct.
And that is so critical, is when you're having those collaborative conversations and you set the expectations first, then it's something that they get used to.
Right.
So I say, have check-ins. I'll tell some of my families and parents that I work with, make sure you start those early and have those check-ins. Sharing of the password. That's something you set at the onset. So 5 years down the road, when you're sitting next to her and you're like, what is that? What's going on? It felt almost like a natural conversation. It wasn't like,
Why are you
give me that. Right. It wasn't as invasive.
Right.
So the setting of the expectation was the first thing I picked up when you said, and I was like, yes, I love that.
Thank you. Oh, I
This
did
is
something
so
right.
interesting for me because as I'm listening to everyone talk, I feel like I'm in a bit of an anomaly because our parenting has almost been, you said collaborative, but it's like the kids are all in on it too. So with my kids, there was an expectation that I would have access to your phone, but the way that I dealt with that expectation was I will just put on screen time. Like you'll open your phone and find out you have 1 minute of social media access.
Oh, so you did the Watchdog software.
Which makes no, it's just screen time, like in Apple TV. In Apple, you can just my kids are my family in there, and when they were not of age, I could just limit their screen time to individual
It's like
apps.
permissions.
Oh.
You give
Yeah.
permissions.
Yes.
And we did do that with Samantha as well.
Okay.
So
we
like
implemented screen
Yeah,
time.
like if grades were slipping or whatever,
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, your grades are slipping. Oh, you know what? I know what's going to do it. You can have Snapchat for 1 minute today, and you will lose your mind. And then they come running. They're like, but what about? I'm like, but your grades are slipping. So because maybe it was from having 3 children, or maybe it was from having a really demanding job, but like policing social media was just not a thing I was going to do.
Right.
But that's fine because my oldest daughter came to me once and said, hey, my youngest daughter is communicating with this person, and I think it might be a problem. And I was like, thank you. And then I told my come downstairs, came downstairs. I'm like, where's your phone? Upstairs, go get it. Brought it downstairs, open this and show it to me right now. And she did. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing this.
Wow.
Like, this is what we're not going to do.
Right.
So it was kind of like the kids also know. And my brother would tell them they're snitches. But what I would say to him is my oldest daughter knew there was a problem.
They're
She
safe
didn't want to
snitches.
handle the problem, but she knew the problem should be addressed, right? So she came to us. So we always had kind of that openness. And like, I was kind of joking, but when I was, like, I look at my oldest daughter, and I was the oldest daughter, and our lives are so different. I had so much responsibility from the time that I was like 11 years old.
Same.
And so, my kids would say I'm overprotective, but I always tell them that your overprotective mother was like your underprotected daughter, right? So I was like, you will always be someplace doing something. So for my daughters, it was dance. At first it was, lesson, then it was competition. We knew everyone at the studio, we knew the parents, the families, they would travel to compete. So they literally were always so busy. And at that studio, and if you're a competitive dancer, there's not really a lot of room for stuff like drinking and drugs, and the studio wouldn't allow it, and people who did it got kicked out, and it was really important to them not to get kicked out. My son plays basketball. He's played for now like 7 or 8 years. He was on junior varsity. He's got the same group of friends, travel.
Wow.
They're not doing drugs. They're not drinking. They're working out. They're athletes. Like, we were very intentional
Really
about how
helps.
they were going to spend their time. And because I had a lot of time, I was always out on the street. Right, I was always I didn't have
hands.
extracurricular money. I wasn't doing any of that, and so I think that that's a big part of it too. Is creating this community that's helping you raise your children, so that the expectation and the standard is present everywhere they go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I will say, I think Erica is one of the most phenomenal mothers, and Erica and I have been friends for, I want to say, going on 15 years now. And I will call her even to this day and be like, hey, we're having the struggle. And she just actually helped me work through something with Sam, who's off at college, that had a very positive outcome, you know, as I was able to talk it through. Because in communicating with Samantha, she was firmly rooted in her opinion, and I was
Shocking.
right. And I was kind of not sure, and so I'm like, hey, what do you think about this, and how should I approach this? And I feel like I made a mistake here, and I don't want to, you know, close that door with her, but she also, and she knows this, she can be very stubborn, and she helped me kind of guide through this. So I do rely on Erica actually for parenting advice. So when they say it takes a village, it 100% does.
Wow, your
So-
kids need a community. You need a community to help raise
Yeah.
your kids, but you also need one for you.
Yeah.
Because you do second guess yourself
Absolutely.
all the
Yes.
time. It's the worst kind of imposter syndrome.
Oh my
Right.
gosh,
Well, it's our
yeah.
first time being parents, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we're like, I feel like I'm winging it.
There's
a
no
lot
really
of the
great
time.
class.
I told that to my oldest that, you know, I was like, I'm learning right beside you, dude.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
you think I know what I'm doing? I have absolutely no idea. And I was raised in the same mindset of, you know, my parents threw us into activities. I was raised in a very religious home. My dad was a reverend, but they were both workaholics. So it wasn't because they wanted us busy. It was because they were busy, and we knew that understanding. The dangerous part of that was, again, there was all this empty time that it felt like they were disinterested when really they were disconnected. So now for me, it's like, you guys are saying this, and I'm like, my 8-year-old's doing so much of this already. Like, can he give me a few more years? My concern is Google search, because he's so curious. So now I'm looking into things to where, because it was a family member who bought the iPad. So it's almost like I lost a bit of control.
Right.
But then I use the whole, I pay for the internet.
Yep.
You crack the screen.
Why are we
I
making
fix-
excuses?
We're not, but I like to give him the logic of, this is why you don't get free access
I'm deferring to
it.
Dr. Brandy on
Well, you
this.
set boundaries. I think it's
Yeah.
important to set boundaries because I'll get that a lot too. Like, oh, my kid was gifted this or that. That's great. It was a kind gift from Aunt
So-and-so.
Sue. That was so sweet. What boundaries are you putting in place to
Right.
put protections in place? Because Aunt Sue isn't parenting your kids
Yeah.
unless that's what you agreed on.
Right.
Don't think that's the case. So,
Yeah.
what boundaries? I would then put it back on you to say that you're going to put in. And it sounds like you already have. You know, you sat there and said, you know, this is, you're only going to have it maybe from this time to this time. I pay the internet. Which, when you hear that conversation, yes, you all are the financial gurus in your home. You put the roof over those kids' heads. You make sure that the food is on the table. We get it.
We
We
buy
hear
their
it.
chargers.
You buy their chargers. You are
Very
large
funny.
and in charge. We hear you. And I say we as I'm like representing all the kids that are
You
in my
are,
head
yes.
complaining, right? You are absolutely the caretakers. And how that's said matters.
It does.
So I'll go back to you real quick. I really loved how you all picked up on that because I wanted so badly to interject for a second. And I was kind of like, yeah, because intentionality and community, right? And you immediately said it. And I was like, okay, so she knew what she was doing in that sense, right? So the collaboration is important. But yes, building community so you know where your kids are. And it's so amazing that you, and same thing with Jordan. Jordan was in sports, right? So you have your kids with, you know, doing these activities. And you have built a community where other people have eyes on them too. So you know what your kids are doing, you know what activities they're in, and it's less time for them to maybe be on the screens and, you know, engage with a potential predator or some creep that is just really inappropriate. And I would also say to use, so nowadays they have parental controls on some stuff, not all, but on some stuff. So when you were talking about the social media stuff and access to some of the platforms, what I thought about was the recent lawsuit. Did you hear about the recent? She was a 20-year-old girl that I believe sued Meta and
Yes.
YouTube. You heard about that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I want an episode
Okay,
on that.
so
bad.
I wanted to bring, well, it's a good one. I wanted to bring that into play here because she was able to argue and articulate that the algorithm was deliberately pumping out addictive content to keep her scrolling, which was linked to the increase in the mental health issues that she was already having.
Yeah.
She got like $6 million off of it, which it's not even about the money. It's just a win for the people and understanding that these gurus have created these platforms to keep the addiction going. And when they're constantly in this loop, it gives access to these predators and all these people to then poach on them, right? So maybe they didn't have the controls, let's say, back then, but they do now. So have those conversations and set those boundaries with your kids on the onset and have the expectations laid out. So 10 years from now, you don't have to worry about them going in and talking to some 35-year-old, maybe 62-year-old on the internet that's
Right.
trying to talk to your 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But it
very-
happens.
And what happens?
Wait,
so
I want to go
often.
back because you
Yeah.
responded to her saying the way that you say it matters. So I know you have a story.
Oh.
Well, I do have a story, and I have a lot of stories actually. You know, and I'm going to bring up the example of, you know, really where Erica kind of helped me most recently. Samantha wanted to join a sorority this semester.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't in a sorority, but I also put myself through college and I worked several jobs to do so. I didn't have time for sorority,
Yes.
nor the funds for sorority.
Same.
But I recognized that she had let me know that she was, while she had made several friends at you know, the university she goes to, which is one of the largest in the country.
I want to ask, but I'm not going to because I don't want it to be out there.
That's okay, same. Yeah. But it's one of the largest, you know, it's here it's here in Florida, so do with that information what you will. But she was having a problem finding a social connection. She had made the friends, but she wasn't having the experience socially that she thought she wanted, and she felt that joining a sorority was going to help in that answer. And she was looking for me to say, yes, go right ahead and do it. And I was saying, wait, I need more information before we can make this decision. I need to know, how much is this going to cost? What is this going to take away from your studies? How is this going to impact your other relationships that you have? And she was, you know, again, frontal lobe and all of that. She's like, you're telling me I can't do this. And I'm like, I'm not telling you you can't do this. I need more information. And that's where almost like a stalemate occurred. She's like, fine, I just won't do it. Okay, well, that's, you know, my college experience will be ruined. You know, dialing, hey, Erica, I need some help here.
Because there's so many different sororities too. There's some that are
Right.
like hard no, and some that are
Exactly.
this is good for you.
Yeah. And I'm like, I want to be able
they're
to do this for
costly.
her,
Yes, they are.
but also I know I'm the one that is financing it.
Yeah.
It's not something her dad was interested in supporting. So I knew it was going to be me. I needed to know, is this going to be worth it? Is this an investment in her future? In which Erica actually, so if Samantha is going to be watching this, absolutely knows it was Erica.
She doesn't want to watch a parenting podcast.
Oh, yes, she
Oh,
does.
she's
She's
gonna
very,
watch it.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
I'm
Hi,
dying
Sam.
to know what you said. Did you say no?
Yeah.
Same.
No. What I said to her is, first of all, Samantha is who she is, right? You know who she is. So if you believe that this is going to create the experience she wants to have, I want to backtrack for a second. I have to make something really clear. I grew up feeling every single day like we did not have enough money for anything.
Same.
Yes.
The
Absolutely
one-
same.
yes.
The
100%.
one thing that my husband and I have always done is make sure our children never feel that. So I
Yes.
don't say that stuff to them. I don't say, I pay for this, this is mine, or I don't care about any of that. Because to me, growing up feeling like life is abundant and like things will always be available
It's
to
a
you
gift.
and will always be like, not having that insecurity has always been really important to
Yes.
me. So when Kate was saying to me, you know, and it's this much money, I was like, can you afford it? And she goes, yeah. And I go, do you want to do it for her? Like, sometimes Kate relies very much on her upbringing and these values, and she's trying to put them on her daughter. But I'm like, you didn't even like them on you.
Right, correct,
Right.
100%.
So this thing that you're thinking is the right way to do it, can you afford it, and do you want to do it for her?
It's a good
And she was like,
reflection
yes.
point.
I'm like,
Yeah.
well, then there you go.
Right.
Then just do
Or has
it.
she given you any reason
You
to
know?
think that she couldn't, or that she would abuse it, or
Yeah.
use
No,
it?
I mean,
Yeah.
she's a great kid and she's
And it
got a good
wasn't-
head on her shoulders.
And it wasn't
Yeah.
an outrageous amount of money
Right.
either. It was, you know, and also I said, the fact that her father automatically said no, I'm like, this is where you get to step in. I'm like, girl, you're a success. Just be
Yeah.
like, girl, I got you. You
Yeah.
know, like mommy's got you.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so, and I said, how do you feel about it? And she goes, no, I feel good. And I'm like, then do it.
Right.
This is mothering for you.
Right.
Aw.
You know
Again.
what? Bingo. It was mothering for me.
Mm.
100%, because I was able to do something for my child that no one did for me, and that wasn't able to be done for me. So, for me to be able to provide her this experience, but again, also bringing that upbringing that I had, which was dysfunctional. There's no doubt about it. They were dysfunctional and certainly not, typical Gen X latchkey parents
Yes.
divorced, not enough ever to go around, spent a tremendous amount of time on my own, but also very strict rules in the house, seen and not heard, all of that, and no expectation of privacy.
What was your mom's name?
She's no longer with us. She, to put those, they come through. It's like
Comes right
these
out.
ancestors channel through you
Yeah.
and try to,
We each have our triggers, and then you hear
Yeah,
one
make
other.
you into them, and it's like,
Behavior.
no,
Yes,
I'm not going
learn
to do
to
this.
expect that was going to
Yeah.
happen, so it becomes unconscious. I have a question though, because I'm 10 years behind you, but we've had this conversation. My concern with the bedroom rules is the other parent, because we're not in the same
Right.
home, and there are different rules.
Yes,
and
there
there
are.
is a very fun parent, strict parent
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yep.
Was that something that Sam experienced?
Very much so. And also trying not to bring my own experience with it, with divorced parents and having the same situation. I really needed to focus on making sure that my house and the space that I provided for Samantha was her safe space, because I can't control what happens at the other household. I can't control what happens there half the week that she's not with me, but I
Yeah.
can influence and control her environment when she is living with me in my home. And I wanted to make sure that she did feel she had a soft place to land, and that she did have the ability to have some freedom where she could decompress, where there weren't going to be all these other expectations on her. As long as, the grades are good, as long as the mental health seems like it's in check, as long as, we're having, friends that are good for us, that are healthy for us, and engaging in activities that are healthy for us. But I wanted to make sure, but yes, there are things that she experienced at her dad's house that would not have been, that weren't taking place at my house, because that was my choice. You know what I mean? If he chose to parent her this way, and that is interesting, and that's probably another podcast where you deal with the different parenting styles of divorced parents.
That's a whole nother dynamic.
It's a
of
whole other
uncomfortable.
dynamic.
Yes.
It is. But, I just wanted to make sure, at least for my house, where, which was her house too, that she felt she had a safe, structured place to live.
And you stayed curious.
Yes.
And with the help of your friend, you reflected,
Oh, yeah.
which was so important. And I love how you said that too, is you do have to go back and dig deep and ask those hard questions of, why am I hesitant? Why am I
And
asking
that's
that? Why
I
am
needed
I
a check.
pushing
She
back?
put me in check.
Right.
I'm like, why am I feeling
Right.
this way? Why am I being difficult about
Right.
this? Why am I having a problem here? You know what I mean? And she's great with that, because she's like, well, lady.
That's
You
why
open the door, so-
community-
Yeah.
That's why that community, that parenting community, is so helpful, because then she can step back and be like, oh, I've either been through this, or I'm going through it,
Right.
or I can see what's happening here, because I'm on the outside a little bit, but I can relate. So then she goes in and she asks the hard questions and makes you reflect on it, and then
Yep.
you can go back to Sam and say, you know what, this is a good idea,
Yep.
but I was asking questions because these were some of my concerns and worries, and you're transparent with her. And then you guys ended up solving the issue.
We did.
And
Did she
I'm
rush?
hoping she's
She
happy.
did, and she's in her sorority. She's very, very
Yay.
happy.
Good.
Her great, this was a good
I'm
thing
going to do
for
this
her.
thing that they do.
Yes.
I don't know what it means.
Yeah,
but it's good.
clock it,
Clock
yeah.
it.
Yay, Sam.
Right. Yay, Sam. But it, the way when I was in college, and the sorority scene in the Greek life was very different
Yes.
than it is now.
Yeah.
And I was hesitant because I felt like it was risky, right? It's going to put her in situations where there's going to be more risk for bad things to happen to her,
Yes.
right?
And
And
they
it's
do.
very different now, apparently. And this, it's more focused on leadership and empowering women and, networking skills and all that kind of stuff. Now, she had me at that, because that's what I do for a living. So I'm like, all right, okay, we can get on board with this.
Yes.
It's going to help her professional development.
There you
Well,
go.
and I think knowing Sam and also my kids, I mean, they're very open with us.
They are.
And that's another big difference is that I think you and I both didn't have very open relationships with
Right.
our, single moms who were
Right.
also trying to figure out life. And my kids, I mean, they tell us stuff we don't even want to know. We're like,
Right.
hey, you know what?
100%. I'm like,
We're
okay,
like,
all right.
I was good
Woo.
without all that,
Yeah.
right? So
Uh-huh.
I think that helps, knowing that when things do become confusing or something like that, they will be right there at the door like, hey, I want to ask you a question you're not going to like. And I'm like, okay, yeah, okay.
So then that really segues into my next natural question, because clearly you had very clear boundaries with your kids. You had very clear structure in your home, but yet you both have kids who are so open and vulnerable with you. So obviously it's not that the rules are the enemy or having structure is the enemy. How do you set healthy boundaries for your kid in this area where they don't have everything, carte blanche?
Right.
There's definitely structure and authority in the home, but like, what does that look like?
Where do you start?
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like for us, one of the things that we have always done is we have always explained in very explicit detail why the rules are the rules.
That.
We've been very clear on why we do certain things. And like when you were talking about Samantha and a safe space, so I mentioned that I have 2 daughters and my son is my youngest, my baby. My baby is 6'5" and ridiculously good looking.
Oh.
He is.
And so
Yes.
That's a
and
whole other episode.
She,
and
she has
so
good-looking kids.
he
Lock him in his
is, right. And the thing that's good is that for a long time he was so into all of his various activities that he was like a really young. His birthday is August 20th, so he's always been young for his class. But he was just like a young kid for a long time. But eventually, girls were going to take notice, and he was going to take notice back. And one of
Girls
the more,
are very aggressive now.
yes,
They're very.
they are.
Yes.
And so, but I will say that both of the girlfriends I've known my son to have been like delightful girls. Like they've been really, really sweet. But my husband and I were talking, and even back when we were younger, when you didn't feel comfortable in your house, you were like in your car, right? And I have a real concern for my son to be
Yes.
out in a car
Yes.
with a girl. My son lives in Weston, Florida, so he is, a black child who dates primarily Hispanic girls. And I have a real concern about his safety if he
Yes.
is caught in a car with
Yes.
a girl
Yes.
by BSO,
Yes.
Yeah.
and whoever happens to do it. And
Yeah.
so it created a different conversation for us around, yes, safety is an issue, but let's talk about the different types of safety and also what we need to teach him about how people are going to perceive him. Because even though he was young, when he was in 9th grade, he was already over 6 feet tall. And people perceived him as an adult, even though he was a very young 14-year-old. And so that's part of what we're trying to teach them also. Not just, your actual physical safety in terms of how you conduct yourself with young ladies and consent and things like that, but also being aware of your surroundings and understanding how people see you so that if you're ever approached, you immediately take the right, we have conversation with him about how you come out of this situation alive to tell me about it.
Right.
And so it's created a little bit of a different conversation for us.
I'm sorry you had to have that conversation.
No, it is what it is. But and then the other thing too is that my youngest daughter had a best friend who was her best friend for all these years, and then rather late in the game we discovered was her girlfriend. And that's something that girls do.
Yes.
Especially girls can get away with that, right? Because girls spend so much time together. It's nothing to have your best friend sleep over.
And
It's
to have
nothing.
the door closed.
Exactly.
into-
And to
wow.
have all this time and I mean this girl was with us all the time. She traveled with us like we, and so that too was like, oh.
So how did you
okay.
I'm curious, how did you handle that conversation?
There was a lot of anger, a lot of betrayal. She was, grounded immediately. I was like, okay, we're shutting you down immediately until I need time to process what's happened here. And I would say it took us maybe a couple of months.
Not because of the sexuality, but because of the deception.
Yes,
Yes.
because of the
Yes.
lying.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
of the lying. Because I just felt like for these people to be in my face all the time and know that they
were
were
lying.
getting away with something that we wouldn't have allowed if we had known, right, was a huge betrayal. And as I said to my daughter, until somebody breaks your trust like this, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about, right? I mean, we gave you the benefit of every doubt, and you actively took advantage of it. But the timing was such that we were getting ready for her to go away to college. So it was like, okay, this is going to be my adult daughter who's going away to college. I need to rehab this relationship. And we have to have some kind of understanding before she leaves, because I don't want this to be the thing that creates this break in our relationship.
So you repair.
Yeah.
So the themes that I'm picking up on, though, is in general, in regards to the bedroom battle and how that carries over into other aspects, is the relationship matters.
Yes.
The communication and the transparency and setting the expectations and just having the conversations early, but consistently throughout.
Right.
And then when if and when trust is broken, you come back and you repair.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
so critical and so important.
It is.
But I'm picking up on it on all of your stories, and that is how you handle situations like this. If you don't want them locking themselves in their room and being secretive, you have to be assertive in the way of having that conversation right on the onset. Hey, you're going to have your own room now. Maybe they've never had their own room. It has a door, and maybe it has a lock, maybe it doesn't. We don't do locks. I mean, there's a lock, but we don't use the locks.
You do locks?
We don't do
No
locks.
No.
My kids don't have locks on their doors.
I mean,
It's just a regular
I have a lock on
door
my door.
handle.
she has a
I
lock
have
on
her
her
own.
door, but she's never used it.
Right. So that's
So-
commonly how most of them come. We just don't, the agreement is we just don't
Yeah.
use locks. I mean, we knock, we pause,
Yes.
and then we enter and we wait for it. However, and I get where you're going to go with it, but again, I go back to the theme here is having that conversation early and consistently, and the transparency is so critical. So the relationship is already being built so it doesn't become a problem later on. And if it does, the repair can be a lot easier after.
I'm going to go in a different direction.
Go for it.
And I'm not about my son, but about the other children
Go for
that
it.
we love and are crazy about on our campus. I did allow locks. It was quite the struggle to get that passed through DCF, but they've had so much trauma to deal with, and they have so much fear around that trauma that I felt that giving them locks, because this was not something that was allowed in our home.
Right.
You do not lock your door. And I allowed locks because I felt like that safety of
Is
having
important.
their own space and being able to retreat. And the rule attached to the locks was, if you disable the lock, if you change the code, if at any point a team member is not able to get into your room, you lose the
Right.
privilege of your lock.
But you set the expectation.
Yes, I did.
And that was important. And you continue to have that conversation, and the
And
team
I only took it
does
away once.
too. Well, your team also has that conversation,
Yes.
and that's the biggest point, right? Is that they have access to go in, and I've seen it with my own eyes too, right? You know, maybe they're sleeping, and they're needed for
hate that.
something that they have to do, an
That is the
activity.
worst when they're sleeping.
It
and
is the
DCF
worst.
comes in and you've got to do the room checks.
It is
Yeah.
it feels invasive,
It's so
but a
awful.
simple, and I've witnessed it, a simple knock, we pause. If we don't hear anything, they understand. The kids know that the code gets entered because all the staff have access to the code. Not that the other kids don't have access to their codes, but the staff has access to the code. They gently come in, hey, so-and-so, we have a meeting or we have something that's going on. Let's go handle it, right? So again, I go back to when you implemented that, which was amazing, by the way. They, having that privacy and that security with where a lot of these kids are coming from is so critical and so needed. They probably
sleep.
didn't, right. And they
They
probably
can
didn't
sleep.
have that. So to then implement the structure, be consistent with it, and set the expectation, the kids know. The kids know.
Okay.
And it's safe.
So we covered what to do when there's a violation. We did that naturally. I didn't even have to ask that question. What are we missing? For the parents listening right now who have absolutely been bamboozled by their 14-year-old who has insisted that they don't need to be triggered, that this is their space, that you need to knock and ask my permission, and they haven't done all of this. They haven't communicated before, and they haven't. Where do they start? Like, if you're in the middle, you're like, my kid runs my house.
If they've been hands off for so long, what I would say to that parent is you just got to recalibrate. You got to come back to the table and you got to reestablish the expectations and the rules and you got to recalibrate. It's never too late. And please don't do it with shame.
Right.
It doesn't work when you come in. So, for example, we're sitting at a kitchen table, a text message pops up. What is that? What is that? Why would you say that? Right, you see your face, you see your reaction. Like,
Yeah.
give me my phone, get off my phone, get out of my
was a
personal
natural-
business.
Right.
It was
It
a
was a real
natural reaction.
a real
reaction.
Exactly.
Because now these electronic
Right.
devices have become part of their
Oh,
their
yes.
privacy
Yes.
world,
Yes.
their
Yes.
personal world,
They're-
which is so crazy.
No.
Big part of their world.
Yeah.
So it becomes an issue where if I approach you like that, I'm attacking you, and of course you're going to be on the defensive.
Yes.
But instead, if I sit there and say, "Hey, Tiff, something I saw the other day really concerned me, and I just want to help me. I want you to help me understand. Can we talk about it?
Mhm.
Are you, true or false, are you more likely to talk to me at that point versus me just all up in
no,
your
don't do
business?"
that.
Yeah, exactly. I can see the anxiety start to
So great.
like, don't look at, don't touch my phone. So it's just a matter of it's never too late to recalibrate, to sit down with your kid, to have that conversation and say, "Hey, listen, we've been doing this for a long time. Things aren't really working. The world is changing." And use the lawsuit that just happened. It was
right.
a huge win
Yeah.
for families, for kids, for parents, right?
What are the new rules that are on social media right now?
Right. The
There's-
new rules, the fact that we can now put parental controls in place and get notifications, use that and say the world is changing and this is what it looks like now
Blame the
versus what
president.
it used to.
Yeah, well, I think,
it.
here's an interesting, so you see like the Epstein files, I think we're all
Yeah.
finally kind of seeing that, like, hey, this is a real and bigger issue than we all thought it was, and how horrible it is. And I think, the older kids are seeing that too, and being like, oh my God, my parents were right to be concerned.
In your backyard.
Yeah.
In your backyard.
Our parents were right to be concerned. They weren't just, this wasn't just the mythological boogeyman out there. This is real,
And they look normal.
and they look normal.
Yeah, they're mom and dad's business partners.
And they're everywhere.
Yes.
They're people
They're
walking
friends
around.
of the family,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's concerning. So those conversations are so important. And as your kids transition off to college and, get into the adult world and do all the big things, they'll more likely come back and say, "Hey, thanks, Mom, for doing that thing you did. Thanks for having that conversation with me." It pays off. It's so hard. Again, no parenting book is going to outline all this. It's
Right.
you're learning as you go for the most part, but there are some things that you can implement and put in place. So by the time your kids do go off and become these amazing functional adults in society giving back, they look back and they're like, "Thanks. I know it wasn't easy, but thanks," to some degree.
That's a great point. One thing that I think is interesting about what you said is, and that I think all parents should think about, is when you're approaching your child, take a moment to think about how much of what you're about to say is about you and not them.
Regulate.
Right?
Yes.
Because
So good.
right, people tend to not do that with their children in a way that they show up in home in a way they never would at work. And one of the things that I thought about two things. One is that I've had a very clear conversation with my son about the difference between embarrassment and shame. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you should be embarrassed. Right? Embarrassment is a good feeling to have when you've done something stupid in front of people that you should not have done.
Teaching tool.
Right? So that is embarrassing. But you don't have to feel ashamed, right? You weren't doing anything wrong. What you were doing was fine and natural. It just, where you were doing it was problematic. So that's the embarrassment versus shame conversation. When I spoke to my daughter about feeling betrayed by her, in that conversation, I said to her, "I want you to know something. I am not sorry that I trusted you this whole time. Like, again, I tell you all the time, I'm showing up as the mother I want to be. I wanted to trust you. I'm not going to feel stupid for doing it, right? I'm not going to feel stupid because you were kind of doing this under my nose." That's something you have to process,
Yes.
right? You have to figure out how you feel about how you behaved. But I had conversations with you where I was like, "Hey, is this?" And you would assure me, you would look me dead in my eye, and you would assure me that nothing was going on, and I chose to trust you. And I'm never going to be sorry that I chose to trust you. Now you have to feel however you feel about how you treated my trust. That is on you.
Oof.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was an uncomfortable conversation.
But a
was.
necessary one, and you did
Yes.
put it back on her to make her reflect on it
Excellent.
without pushing the shame narrative. So critical. I love how you handled that.
I love this conversation. I'm so grateful for you guys for joining us today to have it. This is exactly why we created this table. So thank you for your time today. Miss Vanessa, you want to bring us home?
Sure. If this episode hit close to home for you, and it's something that you want to share with others, please do hit that share button. Subscribe to our channel. We have many more conversations to be had. But we'll see you next time on This Is Now Parenting Teens Today.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Very
You
fun.
guys are